Welcome back to our special Fireside chat series on the Quantum Computing Cybersecurity Preparedness Act of 2022.
Still got the fire, still got the chat.
Still haven't changed our clothes. I mean, God, what is it, like March now?
Yeah.
Insane. Obviously, someone has perfected time travel.
Yeah.
So
imagine what you can do with quantum computing.
Yeah, who knew? I told you the future's coming at you faster than you think. So last time we talked about this new law that's bipartisan, bicameral, signed by the president, supported by liberal Democrats and conservative Republicans. We didn't really talk about what's in the law that much. We talked about what it's planning to do and why it's important and why it shows some forward progress. But now let's dig into the meat of it a little bit more. And while David, the definitions provision of any statute is scintillating.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And we
want to know who the director of NIST is.
Yes.
That's the person who's the director of NIST.
Yeah.
Definitions helpfully explain that.
If you're following along at home on parchment, you will know that NIST is the National Institutes of Standards and Technology.
Yeah.
So we're not going to go through the definitions, so you don't have to go get another iced coffee. But I did want to note a couple of things. The law defines agency, like all laws do, and it applies to the U.S. federal government, the executive branch, agencies. There is a special provision, as we alluded to last time, that carves out national security information systems.
Right.
But David, that obviously doesn't mean that we don't intend to protect our most sensitive systems.
No. And those are, national security systems are defined by statute, and they are systems that bear on intelligence and crypto capacities of the government, military command and control, weapons systems, that sort of thing, more or less what you would think. And those systems are just dealt with separately. Fewer people have access to them. They're even more stringently protected. And frankly, most of that is under the purview, in terms of security standards, is under the purview of NSA.
So I think the idea in exempting those systems from a law like this is not to make them subject to less requirements, but knowing that the government itself is going to subject them to more strict requirements than the law talks about.
I'm reasonably confident NSA has said publicly that they have developed quantum-resistant crypto algorithms that can be deployed. There's a question of how quickly those are going to be deployed, even in national security systems, but it's not as if they have not been focused on that sort of thing. And there we're getting into type 1 encryption and military grade stuff, so that, you know, there's work being done there and some of it's been made public.
Right, but I'm just saying our viewers should not think that the government is trying to exempt itself. They're doing more than what they're asking to be done.
That's exactly.
So I think it's worth actually just reading the definition of quantum computer in the statute, and my eyes are too bad to read it from where I'm sitting. So could you do that?
Yeah, well,
or I can lean into the camera.
You better.
All right.
Well, here I'll read you classical computer.
Yes, do that and then quantum.
The term classical computer, and we talked about it in the last episode, means a device that accepts digital data and manipulates the information based on a program or sequence of instructions for how data is to be processed, and encodes information, and here's the really important part for distinguishing it from quantum. It encodes information in binary bits that can be either, you guessed it, zeros or ones. And so if you have just a little bit of computer science knowledge, which can be dangerous as I do, you understand that sort of 0-1 thing as digital data, right? And that's how a classical, regular, like the kind of computer you got, actually works.
So what the Congress of the United States defines as a quantum computer, and I don't mean this as any kind of slam against the Congress of the United States, but this is what they say. A computer that uses the collective properties of quantum states. So just to be clear, a quantum computer is a computer that uses quantum.
Yes.
Yeah. Such as, and now I am already going to be over my skis, so either you're going to explain these things or our viewers will have to look them up.
Superposition. I don't superposition from super duper position.
Such as superposition, interference, and entanglement to perform their calculations. Now, Albert Einstein, no slouch when it comes to these things.
No? Spooky action at a distance.
Spooky action at a distance. That was Einstein's scientifically crisp description.
So, I'm such a loser that, like, I read for fun these kind of popularized biographies and accounts of like super geniuses from the past, and Einstein and Gödel and others like that. And I read it and I sort of vaguely understand the analogies. It's the kind of people who try to explain relativity theory by like saying, well, pretend the universe is a balloon and you can okay, yeah, that's at the level of understanding that I have. And I think, frankly, most people in Congress are in about the same ballpark or maybe a little worse.
Yeah.
But they tried and they've made a definition that I think the smart people can understand what they're talking about.
I think it's fair to say at the 500,000 foot level that a quantum computer operates entirely differently than a traditional computer.
Yeah.
It isn't just ones and zeros.
No.
It's in at least, now I'm over my skis again, but at least 3 dimensions, if not more than 3 dimensions, where there's particles out there that are in like a giant matrix.
Like cats that might be dead and might be alive.
Right. In fact, maybe this is just proof that we're in the matrix. I don't know. For our purposes, what's important is the threat is coming and Congress knows it.
And the thing that we want to emphasize, a quantum computer is more better when it comes to doing the math that blows up cryptography.
Yes.
Okay? So it's more better, and so you got to watch out.
And it's orders of magnitude. It's a revolutionarily better, which is why the president and the Congress are spending so much energy on this. But I want to say one other thing before we go further. I think one of the strengths of America and the democratic West is we have this pretty remarkable ability when we want to harness the private sector to do innovation. Think about the Manhattan Project, think about the invention of the computer itself, et cetera. So we're going to be all gloom and doom in this podcast about the threat of quantum decryption, because that's what we're talking about. But don't...
And it fits our personality.
Exactly. But don't think this is all a one-dimensional analysis. Quantum computing will deliver to the world massive benefits in healthcare, in communications, in creativity. It's like every technology that's ever been developed. There's a dark side and a bright side.
No, that's right. And I think I've read some very sophisticated, and smart accounts about quantum science in the broadest sense, not limited even to quantum computing, but just the use of this and related technologies. And as you say, healthcare is one of the big fields, and communications is another field. It's really going to do a lot of good if it's deployed correctly, and if the good guys get there first. That's us, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, so let's dig into the meat of what this law actually does. It delivers a message to our friends and our adversaries and our country and our businesses of why this is important and what we need to do. It then goes on to direct the executive branch to, you can't solve a problem until you understand it.
Yeah.
Conduct an inventory.
Exactly. Conduct an inventory. I mean, look, it's not a dramatic statute in the sense that it doesn't say, we hereby direct you to create a working quantum computer in the next 90 days. Okay, that would be nice, but it's not how things work. But it does sort of reinforce some already happening activities in the executive branch to just try to get a handle on what is out there. So they work through the Office of Management and Budget, OMB. Maybe some of you haven't heard of OMB, but it's a remarkably powerful institution within the executive office of the president. And it can tell other government entities in the executive branch kind of sort of what to do.
Especially with regard to money.
Exactly. And so they are telling they're basically telling OMB to work up some criteria for triaging the inventory of systems so that at least we know how many there are. Because, honestly, I mean, I know many big fancy private sector companies that, and other entities that have so many IT assets. They literally don't even know where they all are. They don't know the scope or scale of their own networks. They can't find everything. And it's just, sort of organically grown up, kind of like a coral reef or whatever. And so this is basically saying, all right, whatever you got, can you please get your arms around it? And, they probably won't do it perfectly, and there'll probably be some things that slip through and whatever. There'll be execution problems. But it is, I think, a reasonable idea to sort of say, you got to figure out what you got, and then you can figure out how to triage the migration to quantum-resistant cryptography on those systems. If you don't know what they are, you're never going to do that.
Right, and I think that inventory problem is especially acute when you grow by acquisition. So corporate leaders out there, keep this in mind.
Yeah.
If you've gobbled up 20 companies in the last 20 years, you may not know what all their IT systems are.
Right.
Or let's just say you were the United States of America and you created a Department of Homeland Security and you created.
Are you suggesting there's some inefficiencies or challenges in the creation of DHS? Bryan?
Not to be parochial, because as people know, I am a CIA officer. Same problem with the Director of National Intelligence. You stand up all these new institutions, and you got legacy problems.
You got legacy problems. Yeah, I mean, because they may have totally different approaches to things, and they don't speak to each other. So when you send out your own little web crawler to like do the inventory, it doesn't recognize the assets of the new company. So, yes, it's a big challenge.
So they have to identify their systems that are at risk from quantum computing. They also have to try to get a sense of how to prioritize which ones to fix, right?
Which ones to fix first, yeah, because the ones that are the most important. And I think they have 180 days to do the criteria, and then a year after that to submit to OMB the inventories. And by then, NIST is supposed to issue the standards.
Institutes of Standards and Technology.
Yep. Defined in the statute in case you needed extra help. And they're supposed to issue some standards for cryptography for a post-quantum environment, and those have to be adopted within a certain amount of time thereafter. It might be 15 months, but forgive me if I've forgotten.
And that sounds like a long time
to
the average viewer, but it is lightning speed for the United States.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know what the Vegas odds on this are, if even something so trivial can generate Vegas odds, but, the idea of 100% compliance with that 15-month standard or whatever it is, I don't know.
Well, and also because this is something Congress frequently does, they aren't giving the agencies more money to do this.
Yeah.
They're just saying, go do it with your existing resources. And presumably they were already spending all their existing resources doing their jobs. But the other thing this does, and why we talk about a sense of the Congress, it sounds sort of wishy-washy, and we talk about this creates accountability because every single government officer like you who's confirmed by the United States Senate now is going to have to go down and answer to the Congress under oath, probably on television,
what a delight
about their compliance. I know you enjoyed it.
To be in the private sector. Yeah. So, look, these standards are forcing functions. They create some pressure to move forward, even if the perfect is the enemy of the good, blah, blah, blah. It's still a good thing to set some deadlines, even if they can't 100% guarantee that they'll meet those deadlines. And people do take them somewhat seriously, and it does motivate people and get people going. So it's good. You got to start somewhere.
And just as an aside or a callback, even before this law was passed or around the same time, reportedly, the Office of Management and Budget directed the departments and agencies of the executive branch, maybe excluding national security agencies, to report to the White House the money they needed to become quantum resistant. That's a thing, right? Because money is power in government.
Yeah, I can only imagine just add another zero on that.
We'll take $1
for 2 OMB. Yeah. It's, again, maybe not a perfect, but still a reasonable thing to do to at least ask the question.